Joining us now, Jim Trusty. He represents former President Trump in the Mar-a-Lago classified documents investigation, the federal one. Jim, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Hey, Shannon.
So let's start here. A lot has been made about the fact that this is, quote unquote, a political prosecution. But as Brian points out, we haven't seen the indictment. I mean, there are chances when Tuesday comes, there's more to this case than we know. No?
It's conceivable. I mean, look, think about the grand perspective we have here. We're talking about what should be a sealed indictment, which is completely consistent with how Donald Trump is treated differently than any citizen in this country. And before we get too procedural, Shannon, the starting point is we should never have prosecutors acting out on political promises to target people. We're supposed to have prosecutors. I mean, I was a prosecutor for 27 years. And we were supposed to be judicious when we got started. Figure out where does the evidence lead, follow the rule of law, and instead we have people announcing, if you elect me, I'll indict Donald Trump. So it's no real surprise that when you have people breaking the ethics of prosecution for political persecution, that they're going to have suspect indictments. Their motivations are suspect. Their willingness to listen to a witness like Michael Cohen makes them suspect. And in this case, it seems like what we're guessing the indictment will look like is that it will have legal frailties that will be subjected to a very legitimate motion to dismiss early on.
So this is not the only one out there. There is the impending potential special grand jury Georgia situation, the federal investigations with the special counsel. You're working on that. Now that there has been this historic change, do you feel like other prosecutors will be more willing to come forward and indict, the president, former president, because they won't be the first ones? I mean, that seal has been broken.
Yeah, it's hard to know. I mean, look, I think most of the American public, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a Donald Trump fan or not, a lot of people are recognizing the blatant persecution angle that's being pursued here. So, I'm not going to crawl inside the heads of DAs in Georgia who have similarly announced that they want to indict President Trump, or a DOJ led by an attorney general who had unprecedented press conferences to celebrate his raid on Mar-a-Lago, something I've never seen from any prosecutor, state, federal, or local in 35 years. So it's hard to creep into their minds and figure it out. But there is a commonality here, which is that they are pushing the envelope legally because they've decided to target a man and try to put charges on him rather than actually follow evidence and begin judiciously as prosecutors like your ethics tell you to do.
The president has had quite a bit to say, including this post from Friday. I'll read in part talking about the judge overseeing this case. He says, the judge assigned to my witch hunt case, a case that has never been charged before, hates me. A lot of that's in all caps. He goes on to say, that's the same person who railroaded my 75-year-old former CFO, Alan Weisselberg, to take a plea deal. He strong-armed Alan, which a judge is not allowed to do, and treated my companies, which didn't plead, viciously, appealing. So a couple things to break down there. First of all, I'm an attorney. If my client posted that and was facing that judge, wouldn't make my job any easier. Does it worry you?
Well, look, the president's a big believer in free speech, as you know. He's got strong opinions. I think he's very frustrated for some of his very loyal employees being caught up in the machinery of a persecution. And so he feels strongly about it. But look, I've never had a case in front of this judge. I certainly reserve judgment. I think we're in a position where a fair-minded judge, never mind getting to a jury and changes of venue and some of the issues there, I think a fair-minded judge is likely to recognize there's something fundamentally wrong, that we're crossing the Rubicon with this political persecution. And thankfully, I suspect the indictment is going to be legally frail, and there'll be an opportunity for a judge to do the right thing. We wish prosecutors would do the right thing, but the judges are kind of the backstop on that. So my hope is that despite kind of the hysterics of the moment, despite some emotionality and frustration the president certainly deserves to feel, that this judge will do the right thing when he's faced with significant legal motions.
Okay, so you're talking about things like motions to dismiss. There are other ways this thing maybe never gets to trial. If you do get to trial, would you ask for a bench trial? And for folks at home, that is essentially letting the judge decide this case instead of going to a jury. What do you think is the better route for the president?
Yeah, I mean, way too early for that. There's certainly some legal obstacles that we expect that there will be a problem for this prosecution if it gets that far. But, I think it's early to figure that out. I mean, God knows anybody that's ever even watched a legal show would like the opportunity to cross-examine Michael Cohen. The grand jury in this case probably should have issued one indictment, and that would be for Cohen perjuring himself once again in front of the grand jury, if you track what Bob Costello had to say as a lawyer afterwards. So, I think the opportunity to expose the underpinnings of this prosecution and the frailty of their witnesses is a golden opportunity for anybody in terms of cross-examination and showing the case, really letting the truth come out. And right now, the truth is not anywhere close to coming out in terms of how this thing came together or why.
Yeah, Michael Cohen has told several different versions of the story, but in this case, it was enough, if we think we know what we know about this indictment, that it convinced enough grand jurors to vote yes to make this case proceed forward. If you do get to trial in any of these cases, if there's an indictment in Georgia or on the federal cases, would you put President Trump on the stand? I've got to imagine he's going to want to get up there and defend himself.
Well, we're light years away from that, and hopefully it's an academic question, frankly. But let me just say this: we always talk about the president's strong personality, his resilience, which is amazing to me. I mean, if I were him, I would have retreated to golf a long time ago. But at the end of the day, he's frustrated for the country, and I think that's starting to kind of creep out and resonate. He's worried that he is literally the first person subjected to this new model of upside-down justice, of political persecution. And, it is, you let the genie out of the bottle with this new mode of prosecution. It's not going to go back by itself. It's going to be a problem for generations. And I think he's very aware of that, very concerned, and certainly has a strong voice opposing it. But, we're a long way off before we start talking about legal tactics at trial.
Well, given that he is a big proponent of the First Amendment and enjoys expressing himself, if there were a gag order in any of these cases, do you think he'd comply?
I think he'd comply, but I also don't think it's going to happen. I mean, you're talking about, one of the reasons he's being politically persecuted is he's running for president against somebody who unleashes DOJ against him during the election season. So I think it would be very difficult for a judge to impose a gag order on a person running for president. You talk about having a profound effect on this country. A gag order would do just that.
Well, we'll wait and see what comes of the indictment on Tuesday. Jim Trusty, thank you very much for your time.
Sure. Good to see you, Shannon.